the history of Earth's formation and 25 key milestones. The birth of our planet. Over 4.6 billion years ago, in the vast cloud of dust and gas surrounding the young sun, tiny particles began to collide and stick together. Over millions of years, these small clusters grew into larger and larger bodies. The early Earth was born from this cosmic dance of collisions. One of the most dramatic events in this period was a colossal impact between the young Earth and a Mars-sized body. The force of this collision blasted massive amounts of rock, dust, and gas into space, material that eventually coalesced to form the Moon. An ever-changing world. Since then, Earth has been anything but static. Its surface has been reshaped countless times by volcanic eruptions, tectonic shifts, asteroid impacts, and the slow but relentless work of wind, water, and ice. The earliest chapters of Earth's story are largely missing from the rock record. Geological forces, erosion, heat, pressure have destroyed or altered much of the planet's original crust. But by studying surviving rocks, moon samples, and meteorites, scientists can piece together clues about what Earth looked like in its youth. Tracing the history of life. Life emerged surprisingly early in Earth's history, though the exact timeline is still debated. Fossil evidence provides some answers, but it's far from complete. Like a film missing most of its frames, the fossil record offers only glimpses of ancient worlds. That's where genetics comes in. By comparing the DNA of living species, scientists can use the molecular clock to estimate when different lineages diverged. Yet even this method has its limits. Especially when tracing events deep in the past, interference builds up and the clock becomes harder to read. Still, by combining fossil evidence, genetic data, and geological research, we can sketch a remarkable portrait of Earth's transformation, from a young, molten sphere to the vibrant, life-filled planet we know today. In the next section, we'll explore the key eras of Earth's history, from its fiery beginnings to the age of the dinosaurs, and finally to the rise of humankind. In Formation of the Earth, 4.5 billion years ago. Like all other planets in the solar system, Earth began its life as a rotating disk of dust and gas surrounding the young sun. Dust particles were drawn together by gravity, forming rocky masses that grew into what scientists call planetesimals, ranging from tens to hundreds of miles in diameter. These in turn collided and merged into protoplanets about the size of Mars. Earth reached its final size through a massive collision with another Mars-sized object. This final impact, also known as the moon-forming impact, was so powerful that, in addition to adding more material to the young Earth, it had enough energy to vaporize portions of rock and metal from both the proto-Earth and the impacting body. This vapor formed a disk around Earth, which eventually cooled and clumped together to become the Moon. 2. The first seeds of life 3.5 billion years ago. To this day, researchers have not been able to determine exactly what the first cell looked like or when it emerged. However, the oldest known fossils discovered to date are about 3.5 billion years old, suggesting that the first seeds of life may have appeared even earlier. Scientists believe that life could have begun in warm, alkaline hydrothermal vents at the bottom of ancient oceans, or possibly on the ocean surface, or even on land. 3. Photosynthesis 3.4 billion years ago. Around 3.4 billion years ago, with the help of sunlight, the earliest microorganisms began to evolve. From simple molecules, they harnessed the energy of photons to produce sugars, a process known as photosynthesis. The earliest bacteria on Earth were able to produce sugars from sunlight, but they did not release oxygen. Unlike modern plants, these first microorganisms did not exhale oxygen, meaning Earth's atmosphere at the time was still extremely hostile to humans and animals. 4. Continental drift 3 billion years ago. Earth's crust, while solid, is actually composed of icebergs of rock floating on layers of molten magma beneath. When these icebergs collide, one plate is forced beneath the other, a process known as plate tectonics or continental drift. The very first supercontinent on Earth, called was formed through this process.
5. The first atmospheric
5.
pollution by
The
oxygen,
first atmospheric pollution
2.4
by
billion years ago. About 2.4 billion years ago, the rise of photosynthetic bacteria, capable of releasing oxygen, began to dramatically alter Earth's atmosphere. What we now value as essential for life was, at that time, a deadly toxin for many existing microorganisms that had evolved in an oxygen-free world. This event, known as the Great Oxidation Event, marked the planet's first major pollution crisis. As oxygen accumulated, it reacted with dissolved iron in the oceans, forming vast deposits of rust-colored iron ore that we still mine today. For countless anaerobic species, the oxygen surge proved catastrophic, leading to one of the earliest mass extinctions in Earth's history. 6. Complex cells and symbiosis, 2 to 1 billion years ago. At this stage, life on Earth was still relatively simple. Despite existing for a long time, most organisms had structures similar to modern bacteria. But evolution was about to take life to a new level. A new type of organism, known as eukaryotes, emerged. These cells had a far more complex structure, with specialized internal components, including a nucleus enclosed by its own membrane, separated from the rest of the cell. Eukaryotes also formed partnerships with co-workers of a sort, bean-shaped structures called mitochondria, capable of converting energy from organic compounds into ATP. Researchers believe mitochondria were originally free-living bacteria, not native to eukaryotic cells. Through a process of symbiosis, or possibly engulfment, these bacteria entered into a cooperative relationship with eukaryotes, supplying them with energy. Every plant and animal alive today is made of eukaryotic cells. 7. The first appearance of sex, 1.2 billion years ago. The earliest organisms reproduced asexually. Cells simply grew and then split into two identical copies. The arrival of sexual reproduction marked the beginning of genetic mixing, paving the way for greater diversity among species. Fossils of red algae, dated to 1.2 billion years ago, show evidence of specialized sex cells, such as spores. This suggests that sexual reproduction emerged before that time. 8. The first multicellular life, 1 billion years ago. Fossils as old as 2.1 billion years indicate that some bacteria had already learned to live in colonies, allowing them to grow larger, though they could still survive as single cells when needed. Around 1 billion years ago, the first true multicellular organisms appeared, made up of cells that could not survive independently. Interestingly, different groups of life seem to have chosen the multicellular path separately. 850 or
Plants are thought to have
634
embraced
million years ago.
multicellularity before
After
animals.
the first oxygen pollution event billions of years earlier, Earth once again faced a dramatic transformation. Around 850 million years ago, the planet entered a deep freeze that lasted about 200 million years. Ice covered the Earth from the poles to the equator. The cause of this global glaciation remains uncertain, but it profoundly influenced the rise of more complex animals. During this time, tube-shaped and frond-like organisms, some resembling modern ferns, appeared, marking the beginning of a new era known as the Ediacaran period. Menaferta Ediacaran. The Cambrian explosion 535 million years ago. Once animals had evolved and adapted to new environments, Earth experienced two great bursts in biodiversity. During the Cambrian explosion, roughly every 10 million years saw the emergence of entirely new groups of animals. Most developed hard shells, making fossilization far easier.
scientists suspect that earlier explosions may have occurred, but soft-bodied creatures from those times left little to no trace in the fossil record. 45 million years later came another major diversification, known as the Great Ordovician Biodiversification Event, which saw a rapid increase in the number of species within existing animal groups. Men 3 year, plants conquer the land 465 million years ago. For billions of years, water was the cradle of life on Earth. Until about 500 million years ago, only a few animal species ventured onto land, and even then not to live there permanently, but mainly to lay their eggs in safer places away from aquatic predators. Green algae were the first pioneers to set foot on land. However, it was plants that became the first permanent residents of the terrestrial environment. Descendants of green algae were the first plants to colonize the land, and over time they quickly evolved and branched into many different species. Menaferta I Diacaram. The Andean-Saharan Ice Age, 460 to 430 million years ago. Biodiversity flourished during the Ordovician period, but as the period drew to a close, Earth faced another mass extinction, with the number of species declining nearly as much as had been gained. At the end of the Ordovician, global temperatures plummeted and ice from both poles spread across much of the planet's surface. This led to an ice age known as the Andean-Saharan, named after two locations where evidence of this glaciation was discovered: the peaks of the Andes and the Sahara Desert. The Andean-Saharan Ice Age marked the first recorded mass extinction and the second largest in Earth's history
scale.
in terms.
It is estimated that up to 85% of marine species were wiped out. In the aftermath, with many competitors gone, fish populations expanded rapidly. 13. The first amphibians, 375 million years ago. Animals began establishing new homes on land. Around 400 million years ago, insects were the first to crawl onto the terrestrial surface. Vertebrates soon followed. By 375 million years ago, the first amphibians emerged, bridging the gap between aquatic and terrestrial life. 14. The dawn of reptiles, 320 million years ago. In the midst of a prolonged cold period during the late Paleozoic era, often called the late Paleozoic Ice Age, the first reptiles appeared. Evolving from amphibians resembling modern salamanders, these early reptiles had thick, scaly skin and laid hard-shelled eggs, adaptations that allowed them to thrive away from water. Reptiles quickly became the dominant land animals. 15. The supercontinent, Pangaea, 300 million years ago. For the last time in Earth's history to date, all the continents came together to form a single massive landmass known as Pangaea, surrounded by a vast global ocean called Panthalassa. This supercontinent and superocean existed for about 175 million years. Around 10 million years after its formation, the land masses began to drift apart once more, eventually shaping the continents we recognize today. 16. The largest mass extinction, 252 million years ago. The end Permian extinction was the greatest challenge life on Earth had ever faced, wiping out about 96% of all marine species and a comparable percentage of terrestrial species. The exact cause of this extinction remains uncertain. Archaeological evidence points to the possibility of massive volcanic eruptions, known as the Siberian Traps. These eruptions covered 2 million square kilometers of Earth's surface with lava, filled the atmosphere with toxic gases, and raised ocean temperatures to as high as 40 degrees Celsius. Following this catastrophe, life slowly recovered, ushering in a new age, the era of the dinosaurs.
UV20. The first mammals, 220 million years ago. Mammals emerged during the same period when dinosaurs were evolving and spreading across the globe. Their ancestors were reptiles known as cynodonts, dog-like in appearance and in some cases covered in fur. These early mammals were small, nocturnal creatures living in the shadows of the dinosaur giants. Numero 5. The Triassic extinction, 201 million years ago. The Triassic period was dominated by dinosaurs on land and massive marine reptiles like ichthyosaurs in the oceans. However, another mass extinction struck, wiping out about 80% of species. The cause of this extinction is still unknown, yet shortly after, dinosaurs not only rebounded but reached even greater sizes, continuing to dominate terrestrial ecosystems. Numero 9. The first birds, 160 million years ago. Modern birds are direct descendants of feathered dinosaurs such as the velociraptor. Over millions of years, these creatures evolved the ability to fly, giving rise to the diverse bird species we see today. Numero 20. The rise of flowering plants, 130 million years ago. Flowers are one of the most recent inventions of the plant kingdom. Although plants had existed on land for 465 million years, no flowers were recorded for more than 2/3 of that time. It appears that flowering plants evolved during the mid-dinosaur era, introducing vibrant colors and scents that would forever transform ecosystems by attracting pollinators. Numero 10. The death of the dinosaurs, 65 million years ago. About 65 million years ago, a massive space rock slammed into Earth at the site of what is now Mexico, triggering a global period of cold and darkness. The impact wiped out dinosaurs, large predators, and other giant reptiles. Smaller species, however, survived because they required less food to sustain themselves. This was the 5th recorded mass extinction, and the most recent one to date.
22. The first primates emerge, 60 to 55 million years ago. With most dinosaurs gone, mammals seized the opportunity to grow and multiply. They rapidly evolved reproductive systems with wombs and placentas, allowing them to carry and nurture their young internally. Some mammals began adapting to climbing and living in trees to escape predators, an evolutionary path that would lead to monkeys, apes, and eventually humans. The earliest primates were tiny, living mostly in hot, humid tropical forests in Asia. The oldest known primate fossil belongs to a species called Archicebus achilles, weighing less than 30 grams. 23. The rise of super photosynthetic plants, 32 to 25 million years ago. For billions of years, plants had been using photosynthesis to convert sunlight into sugars via a process now known as C3 photosynthesis. But relatively recently, certain species evolved a more efficient method, C4 photosynthesis, allowing them to thrive in harsher environments. C4 plants are better adapted to hot, dry, and nutrient-poor conditions, giving them an evolutionary advantage in challenging climates. 24. The first hominids, 13 to 7 million years ago. Around 25 million years ago, the first apes appeared in Africa. Later, during the time frame of this event, they split into two evolutionary branches, the ancestors of modern apes and the ancestors of modern humans. Archaeology and genetic studies allow us to estimate that about 7 million years ago, the earliest known hominid, Sahelanthropus chadensis, walked the Earth. 25. Modern humans, 200,000 years ago. Modern humans, scientifically known as Homo sapiens, are only about 200,000 years old, a mere 1/5 of a million years compared to the 7 million years since Sahelanthropus chadensis. Yet, in that short span, humans have left their birthplace in Africa, spread to every continent, and even ventured beyond our planet into space.